Welcome to the Universal Monster Podcast, the show that now has more installments in it than the Dark Universe. I'm your host, Jake, the author of The Devil's League. Yeah, I know. Shots fired immediately. And creator of hot quality content. And with me, as always, is the creator and host of Screenplay Archaeology, Kieran Midhead, a.k.a. Bruce. How you
doing? Good.
Every month, my fine co-host and I break down a bunch of Universal Monster news across movies, shows, theme parks, physical media, and anything else regarding these classic monsters. After that, we discuss the topic and the title of the episode, which is, of course, the Brendan Fraser Mummy Trilogy this week, or month,
we're not going to do my idea of the gag where I rip open an envelope and go, "May I see the Mummy Trilogy?" Yeah,
it would have been
that joke's going to date in like a month.
Exactly, it already has. As soon as you said it, it dated.
Hey, at least I got to do a decent Pacino impersonation.
Yeah, exactly. So, are you ready for some news?
Whatever news there is.
Yeah, there's not much, but there's a few standouts.
There's the thing I shared.
Yeah. I was going to start with the small stuff and then go to the thing you shared.
Yeah.
According to a recent article, apparently the design of Creature from the Black Lagoon was inspired by the Oscar statue. This is from a resurfaced 1975 interview with Jack Arnold that apparently nobody knew or cared about at the time. I have the quote. My finest Jack Arnold voice, which is just my voice. I remember one day when I was looking at the certificate I received when I was nominated for an Academy Award, there was a picture of the Oscar statuette on it. I said if we put a gill head on it, plus fins and scales, that would look pretty much like the kind of creature we're trying to get. So they made a mold of rubber, and gradually the costume took shape. They gave him some human characteristics, which helped him make him sympathetic. That's pretty funny.
It's funny because I don't see it at all.
I don't see it at all, A. B, it's just a guy. Like, it's not unique in any way.
It apparently looked like someone's Uncle Oscar, which is why it's called that.
Is that why they call it that?
That might be one of those popular myths, but supposedly someone, when they were designing it, someone at the Academy, she went, "Oh, that looks like my Uncle Oscar."
Wow.
So you've seen your Uncle Oscar completely naked? Is that it?
That's a pretty lame origin of a nickname, because they're just called the Oscars now. They're not even called the Academy Awards, like on TV.
Yeah.
So... But yeah, no, I read that and I was like, that's like barely significant enough to be news, because nobody would ever think that when they watch any of those creature movies.
No, never.
It's literally, like I said, it's just a guy doing this. Like, there's no...
Yeah. There's no, the muscle definition doesn't even match.
I know. Like, you're reading what he says, he's like, you put a gilled head on it and fins and skin. Like, yeah, if you add literally every single attribute of the creature onto it, then yeah, it looks like the damn creature. But, like, what are you talking about?
Jack Arnold, who directed the Were Caveman movie, Monster on the Campus.
Oh, my God.
I brought that up last time.
You find a way to mention that stupid movie.
It's so weird. We're going to have to do it just for the sake of it eventually.
The sake of you bringing it up constantly,
yes.
Yeah, we'll eventually. You'll strong-arm me into doing it.
We'll do it just so I stop talking about it.
Yeah. Well, relevant to the Mummy trilogy this week, I finally did the freaking Mummy Dark Universe scripts because you strong-armed me into doing them.
Yeah. You got to read, the great writing of a character named Tyler Colt.
Oh, my God. You got to bring that back, man. You bastard.
How can you not? It's the most memorable thing.
It sure is. I don't know. I mentioned that off the top at first because there's not a whole lot here, but I just thought it was slightly amusing and kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll move on to the next piece of news. Universal's comic series, which you and I have both talked about, we want to get into. We just haven't started reading it.
Yes, I've read the Dracula series.
Oh, you have? Okay. Interesting.
Yes, it's good. It feels like they kind of skip an issue towards the end, but it's good.
Mm-hmm. Universal's comic series has focused on Dracula and soon Frankenstein. And as of today being when I wrote this like a week ago, the creature now has its own comic series with the title Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives. So
that's the next one that's coming next month.
Yes. So what's significant is the cover art's been revealed. It takes place just after the first movie, disregarding the sequels.
No, Halloween 2018.
Yeah, Halloween 2018. I don't know how I feel about that.
Most of the Godzilla reboots, too.
Yeah. Not that I love those second and third movies. I think the first one is far and away the best of the three.
Yes, it is.
I consider them canon. I mean, at least...
Yeah.
The end of 3 be damned. I don't like how he turns into a weird human thing, but like...
It commits suicide at the end of it.
I guess that would make it difficult to make a sequel if he's just half human, So I get why, kind of, but like...
Yeah. I mean, or at least don't ignore revenge. Revenge is fine.
Revenge is fine. And it's kind of weird to me because, like, I think they took the mentality of like, oh, people like and or care about the first one, so let's just do the first one. But like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Is there going to be a scene where they're like, oh, they say he was captured and taken to Florida? It's like, no, that's just something people say.
Yeah, that's just a legend. What are you talking about?
like at Halloween 2018, where it's like, no, people just say they were brother and sister. They weren't really.
The Dracula comics that you've read, is that a sequel to 1931 Dracula?
It's a retelling.
It's a retelling. Okay,
it's a retelling because the 1931 Dracula does not take place in the Victorian era. Like the book does. It's set in the 30s because you can hear cars and stuff in one scene.
You can, yeah. It's very clearly contemporary.
It kind of resets it earlier. And the first issue is basically told from Renfield's perspective in the asylum. And the story kind of splits between Renfield doing like his crazy stuff and Dr. Seward kind of getting involved in like discovering what Dracula is doing and all the victims that are dying.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of builds and builds, and it kind of builds from there and kind of retells the original movie.
Okay, so it hasn't had a chance to disregard the sequels or not yet.
No, it hasn't. Because there is a one of the when they did the novels back in like 2008, the Dracula book is a sequel to the movie that just ignores the others. But like, I mean, the sequels kind of ignore each other anyway, so.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's not like Creature where they follow on from each other.
At least Creature's kind of consistent with the lore, quote lore,
Whatever lore there is, he's a fishman.
Whatever in these B movies from the 50s. But no, so that was interesting to me because I didn't know what the direction the other comics were taking, so I didn't know if that was like one diverging and the other one was just like that way. So
I don't have it in front of me, but there is a description of the Frankenstein comic that's coming in August.
That looks interesting. I've read that description where it's like
it sounded kind of strange.
The police officer body or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'll give it a read after I read Dracula, of course.
I'm curious about the Creature from the Black Lagoon one. Just the art looks like they're trying very hard to be Mike Mignola.
Yeah,
the Hellboy guy for those
white
of you who
with
don't
the
know.
black lines. Yeah, looks pretty cool. Yeah, so that's it for that. I have two more pieces of news. Now we're getting into real news. That's about upcoming Universal Monster projects. I say real news because there's really only 2 Universal Monster movies coming.
This year.
This year, anyway. Well, that we know. I don't think there's anything after that, but we'll find out.
We'll see.
So the first news is about the closer of the 2 projects, Abigail. The directors of the upcoming reimagining of Dracula's Daughter, allegedly, have said that there's so much blood in the movie that they ended up apologizing to the actors.
Make it sound like a Nickelodeon special.
Yeah, with the slime.
Yes.
I have a quote. All of our movies are bloody, but I would say this is definitely the most bloody. We spent a lot of time apologizing to our actors on this movie. I mean, blood is in the DNA of a vampire movie, and the amount of blood work on this one is pretty extreme, but it's still fun. I don't know. I think it's cool that they're going more physical, practical blood than CG blood, because CG blood still just does not look like goddamn blood. It just doesn't.
Mean, with very few exceptions, the blood in Zodiac is all CGI, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, I think that's because they chose a very good color palette for doing blood like that.
Because Fincher knows what he's doing.
Fincher knows what he's doing. A lot of blood in CGI is like modern day, very brightly lit, so all the flaws are just right there,
And if it's their bloodiest, because I would say they got a little less bloody with the 2 Scream movies. Ready or Not, by the end of that movie, Samara Weaving is just covered in blood.
And I will say this too. If I watch this movie and there's tons of very obviously CG blood, I'm going to be like, wow, you guys are, damn, you're full of shit. Not that I believe they use physical blood, but like the post-production, we're just like, let's just add all the CG shit in there.
Oh, like The Thing.
Like The Thing, 2011, where it's like, you just replaced all this cool practical stuff with this very dated CGI that dated as soon as it left the theater. So.
CGI that looked like it was from like 2003.
Mm-hmm. It was pretty rough.
That's maybe too mean. 2007.
Yeah, exactly. The PS3 era, not the PS2 era.
Because 2003 is too close to Mummy Returns CGI.
How relevant.
Yeah.
We will. But then, of course, the last and probably most important bit of news here is that Wolfman has started shooting. This is, of course, Leigh Whannell's... I don't even know if I can call it a follow-up to Invisible Man, but we just did episode 1.
It's his next film after Invisible Man, so it's his follow-up.
It is technically a follow-up by him in this same franchise, quote, quote, because they're very loosely, if at all, connected. Even the reboots are now. So, we'll see how that pans out. But I'm just really excited, regardless of connectivity, for a great movie by the guy who made my favorite Universal monster movie so far in the whole canon, Invisible Man 2020.
Yeah, that is a great movie. And he also made Upgrade, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. He did. Upgrade is fantastic. It's Venom, but good.
It's weird. Leigh Whannell went from being like a bit player in one of the Matrix sequels.
Yeah.
To like he helped create Saw. He helped create Insidious, and then he directed Insidious 3 and then became just a great director after that.
Yeah, he's been in Hollywood for 20 years without being notable as a name, and now he's breaking through, and I'm so happy about that because he deserves it.
He's secretly the more interesting filmmaker than James Wan.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, Wan has some hits, but he has a lot of misses too.
Because I like Wan, but I just got his style of ghost movie has gotten so prevalent. It's just I don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the reason why I like Malignant, is because that movie kind of psyops you into thinking it's going to be one of those, and that's totally not.
That's really funny. Yeah, no, I haven't seen Malignant. Jokwin did and did not like it.
Yeah, it's a movie I can see why you would be like a Marmite.
Yeah, fair enough.
Kind of situation, because it's insane.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm super excited for Wolfman. I think that's still this year scheduled, even though it just started
October.
Today. So that means it's probably gonna be low budget and quick turnaround. It's not a
Practical
$200 million blockbuster.
No, they're not going to send it back for 2 years of reshoots like they did with the Wolfman 2010 or however long they were in reshoots on that.
Yeah, right. I'm excited for the makeup. I'm sure there's gonna be some nice practical stuff going on. So hell yeah.
Still no word on if Christopher Abbott is actually playing the Wolfman or not. I'm curious.
You mentioned that last episode. Now that I think about it, I'm kind of glad how little I know about this.
Yes,
I
that's
kind of
true.
like the mystery behind the project. All I know is the main guy and the director, obviously, and that's it.
Yeah. Because I'm wondering, because if it's about a family that's under siege from a werewolf, is it going to be kind of like... Have you seen Dog Soldiers?
I have not.
That movie is basically Aliens, but with werewolves, with these army guys getting besieged in a house in the middle of nowhere. By a clan of werewolves. Is it going to be kind of like that, but with one wolf man?
Potentially.
That's a good movie.
Fun.
From the director of the terrible Hellboy reboot, admittedly, but it's a good movie.
The werewolf concept is very malleable. This sounds so shameless, but when I wrote my book, I have a bunch of short stories about different types of monsters, but the werewolf story, I wrote short stories about all these different, because it's such a malleable thing. You can apply it to so many different types of stories in a lot of different contexts, and you can get so much out of each one. Like even look at the movies like American Werewolf and The Howling do completely different things, but they both have that same kind of core concept.
Came out in the same year.
Did it? Jesus Christ.
Or very close to each other.
Wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, because Rick Baker was supposed to do The Howling, and then he got roped into doing American Werewolf instead.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. Cool. But yeah, I knew they were both the 80s. I didn't know they were the exact same year.
I'm pretty sure they're the same year, because they always get brought up in the conversation as rival claims to the best werewolf movie.
Well, they are two of the best. They probably might be the best.
I need to revisit The Howling, because I remember being hearing about it for years and then finally watching it and going that's it. But
I watched it when I was way younger. I remember the effects looking great, the practical.
Oh, they did, yeah.
That's pretty much my memory. I don't remember the story or anything like that. But
you don't really see werewolves much anymore, so this is.
I know. I miss it.
It's probably because vampires, you can just put a person in a cape and go, "Here's your monster."
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think that werewolves are played out, but an idea is only played out if you haven't done it new in a while. You can revisit anything. So, but yeah, all right. So that's
wait, I have to ask: are there more Scorpion King movies than there are Wolfman movies?
In Universal's canon?
Yes.
Do you count the crossovers as Wolfman movies?
I guess. Well, yeah. Then there would have to be more.
There's tons. There's
But he got the more solo movies.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Larry Talbot-esque movies. Then there's the reboot as well.
Okay,
Plus, also in Van Helsing, the Universal branded werewolf appears.
Yes.
So, I don't know. But yeah, technically, the Wolfman got one movie and one reboot, if you want to look at it.
Yeah, that's true. I always thought that was a shame, because I would have liked a Wolfman 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
before you do the crossover. Because, I mean, I like Meets the Wolfman all right, but it is Wolfman 2.
I won't go into my rant on Meets the Wolfman again on this.
Yes. Your rant
The audience
based
is well
entirely on
informed.
the poster.
Hey, look, it's misleading. But all right, here we are. We have moved through all of the news topics at a breakneck pace because the Mummy Trilogy is a meaty one. We got quite a few points of, I guess, discussion.
Would there have been a way
about.
to move through that little amount of news in not a breakneck pace?
No, because there's not much of it. It's just a movie started shooting. Yay. I'm not there. I don't know.
A movie started shooting and there was a dumb picture of Leigh Whannell holding the slate.
Oh, yeah, we can mention that. It was the logo revealed, but it's just Times New Roman or something.
It'll probably be different by the time it comes out.
It'll probably be different by the time it comes out, yeah.
I want to know what the poster looks like for that movie, because the posters for The Invisible Man were really good.
They were.
Because it's the main poster was just Elizabeth Moss and then black. And The Invisible Man could be there. Could not be.
That was a creative move, though. I don't know how creative you can get with the Wolfman concept in comparison to Invisible Man, but hey, I just said you can breathe new life into anything, so maybe they will.
Yes, you can.
So yeah.
When are they going to do the Jungle Woman?
Yeah, exactly.
Bring back the Creeper.
Yeah, why not? Bring it on. So here we are at the Mummy Trilogy, the title topic, of course. Now, audience going into the... Actually, I am curious. I'm going to ask you a question first. What were your opinions on this trilogy prior to this episode?
When they were coming out, when they were coming out, I was like all in on them.
Okay.
Because I loved the first movie when it came out. I loved the second one when it came out. I liked the third one.
Okay.
At the time, but I didn't see that one again. I didn't see that one as much as I did the other two when I was younger.
Sure. Okay.
I'm actually old enough that I remember they had a DVD set of the Mummy Trilogy that was the two Mummy movies and the Scorpion King.
That's very funny.
Yeah,
what an odd collection.
And the box was like, it was the gold book.
Mm-hmm.
It looked
That's
like
really
the gold
cool.
book, yeah.
That's
And it was
really
like,
nice.
I just always thought that was funny, Mummy Trilogy, because like the Scorpion King is not even really connected to the Mummy Returns.
No, not even a little bit. No way. Oh my god. But yeah.
To the point that Stephen Sommers later said, like, oh, they're not the same character. We can get into that another time.
Yeah, certainly. We'll have it a whole episode about the Scorpion King-ness of it all. So.
And then later on, I went back to them, and I'm like, I still like the first one. The second one's kind of bad, and I don't like the third one. It's very weird. It's a very weird cycle how my film tastes kind of matured a little bit.
Interesting. So you still hold that first one in high regards, then?
Yeah, I do actually. I watched it.
Okay.
I actually watched it twice for this. Once with the commentary, once without.
Oh, interesting. I didn't.
I
had the option to. I didn't.
I'll bring up criticisms because I do have I have basically two kind of really big ones about the first movie. But other than that, I like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess I'll share my kind of worldview on this. As the audience knows, may or may not, we did the Monster-thon, me, Ian, and Mud. And when we got to the Mummy Trilogy, I did not terribly enjoy the first one, and then I did not terribly enjoy the second one. And we will get into all the reasons why we do and don't like those movies. And the third one, I gave a 5 out of 10. I think it's the best one.
Marginally higher than the other two.
Marginally higher. I think it's at the time anyway. I gave it a 5 out of 10. We can talk about choice score changed or not recently. Yeah. We'll get there, but at the time I was like, this is the best one of the three. So for this episode, because Mummy Trilogy is now, I rewatched all three. I'm gonna reveal something on air briefly.
Oh boy!
Right before we started recording, like hours before, I was like, when do you want to record? You're like, oh, let's do it soon whenever you're ready. I was like, great, whatever. We got some stuff going on. Give me at least an hour. That was to finish the final hour of The Mummy 3.
Oh my god.
So I have it as fresh in my mind as humanly possible. Like, I hit end on the film, and I hit you up, and I'm like, I'm all set.
And that is one I didn't watch the commentary for, because I don't own that movie, and I couldn't find an audio file of it.
I watched it pirated, but there was an option to click commentary, and I was like, you know what? No, I want my film-based opinion. I'm just going to watch it as is.
And that's the one I've seen the least, so that's another good reason to. And also, I don't know if I really care about the director of Triple X talking about one of his movies.
It definitely didn't feel like the director was like this incredible... We'll get into opinions later, but like, damn, yeah, no, I totally see what you mean. So yeah, my going into the trilogy, again, I was already thinking The Mummy 3 is my favorite one. I have revisited it. Some opinions I have changed. some have stayed the same.
Oh boy.
Should I just? I'm gonna save my opinion on Mummy 3. I'm gonna
Let's
save
save
it.
Mummy 3 to the end because Mummy 3 is Mummy 3.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
It's weird that they made that movie when they did, though, because it was so long after the other two.
That movie, in many ways, is very weird.
Yes.
So, all right. So let's just get into it. Here we are. Part 1, Mummy. It's just called The Mummy with the big M in the middle.
Yeah, even as a kid, I thought that was strange.
That's very Mummy. So
Mummy.
I took little notes because I feel like each note I take is like a big topic of conversation. So the first note I have is a big topic. There is a 10-minute exposition opening that dates back, and even watching it like the first time, I was like, wow, I feel like this is not all that relevant or important. And you watch the movie and it's like, oh yeah, it's relevant, but it was really long for no reason. And now that I've revisited it, because I'm rewatching it having already seen part 1, I'm like, wow, they did not need this much information in this stupid prologue. And they all do it. All 3 of them do it. Tom Cruise as the Mummy does it. They have this extended how the Mummy was betrayed every time.
You bet the Tom Cruise movie is the worst version of this. You have to admit, because they repeat that footage like 17 times throughout the movie.
I know. They try and get away with it where it's like, oh, he's having visions. It's like, I've seen it. I don't care.
And that, we probably could have folded that movie into this because it's kind of a 4th movie in this.
It is kind of, I mean, it's hard not to talk about Tom Cruise as the Mummy. I'll just be honest, but we can just mention it whenever. It is technically a sequel.
I will say this, though, with that movie, with the reason why that repetition is so bad is because the movie is like not even 100 minutes without credits. And they had to pad it out like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't know why you pad that movie out.
99 minutes without the closing credits. There's nothing to that movie.
Nothing. They cut it down so much, but also there's like no substance. But yeah, so we'll get into Mummy 1. The exposition opening. Yes, this movie is far superior than Tom Cruise's The Mummy in 10,000 different ways. But something it shares with that bad movie is I don't enjoy the amount of pointless setup, because the reason why is when you watch the movie, that same information gets revealed anyway. Like, you can still have a big opening like that flashes back, but I'd say like 5 or less minutes. Like, just a quick, like, previously on, as if that's that same kind of thing, where it's just you tell the audience the major details and you move right to modern day, or contemporary, whatever it is.
1923.
23, yeah.
I don't mind the opening.
I think of the 3 movies, it is the least annoying of them, but I also could be biased because I could be getting sick of it as I keep watching them.
Like, I think it's cool that they actually went out of their way to get like an Egyptologist to reconstruct the language for them and everything.
That's cool.
Like, you get a lot of spectacle, and like the CGI is aging, but I think for this movie it's aging okay compared to what we get later.
I agree. Yeah. The CGI in all 3 has its highs and lows. I will leave it at that for now. We'll get more into it in a minute.
And it's harkening back to mummy movies of yore.
Yes, it is.
It's even the original movie has a pretty long exposition dump, but that happens like 2/3 of the way through.
Yes. I think, A, good thing it happens 2/3 of the way through, not at the start, and B, the problem with 2, 3, 4, and 5 for the classic Mummy sequels is that they keep flashing back.
And they keep using the same flashback from the first movie. They just shot new close-ups.
I know. At least these movies don't do that, because
that
in modern day, that doesn't fly.
That was so confusing when I was a kid. I'm like, this is the same movie. What's going on?
That style of filmmaking does not fly in modern day. Thank goodness they did not do that in this trilogy. But yeah. So just want to note that off the bat because it's the start of the film.
And also, I'd like to do some kind of background contextual stuff for the movie a little bit.
Sure, please.
I won't go full screenplay archaeology here. I'll keep it fairly brief. But they started developing a Mummy remake in like 87.
Yeah? Holy shit.
Yeah. Like, there was like the first version they did was like, I haven't read this version because I've never found the script, but it's supposed to be like, the pitch the producers like gave to the writer was, let's do the Terminator but with a mummy.
I see why they would say that.
So it's like a big chase movie with like the Terminator, and this is pre-Terminator 2 as well.
That's so fun. I'm not even like, wow, that's so stupid. It is stupid, but it's just very predictable. Of course they would pitch it that way. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, and then that didn't go anywhere. Clive Barker they bring in. He does his own pitch where it's like this weird, almost kind of Lovecraftian thing,
Mm-hmm.
where the mummy is just kind of like set dressing for it, and like the villain was supposed to be like a trans woman.
Oh, wow.
And apparently that was what killed it because the studio was like, we don't want your perverted idea in this movie, blah blah blah.
That was audacious of the writers to have included that. I hope the script was somewhat respectful.
Well, I've never been able to read that because that's the other one that's
Mhm.
been one I've been chasing for like almost a decade of doing screenplay archaeology. Never
You'll
been
get
able
there.
to find it.
That'd be so sick.
The writer told me he wouldn't give it to me when I asked him.
You asked the writer. That's very funny.
Yes.
But
But
yeah, no, that's
Clive Barker's comments on it, though, that I found were like, as though he wanted to do the trans character as like, oh, the men in the audience will be lusting over this beautiful woman through the whole movie, and then they find out she has a dick and they'll be disgusted. And I'm like, okay, Clive.
that's a real Ace Ventura moment.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
But I think it's really funny, regardless if it was regardless how respectful the script would have been, for the writer to think that the studios would be like, oh yeah, let's just do that in the '80s. That's a great idea. Like
that
that's
would have been 90-91.
1991. Even still, that's not really the time frame. Like the closest cinema got was a joke in Ace Ventura, as I mentioned, which was later on in the '90s as
And
well.
the Crying Game,
The crying, yeah, yeah, oh yeah, that's true. It
which is
wasn't
what
until,
Ace
the
Ventura was
2000s.
referencing.
Exactly. But like the 2000s is where you started to see that kind of stuff happen, and now it's obviously more prevalent. But no,
And
no way that would have worked.
And to keep it kind of on the brief side, what you move on to is that you had several different versions that were basically like a modern update of the 1932 movie with the reincarnation theme. And you had Joe Dante was going to do one version of that. You had George Romero. Those all fell apart for different reasons. And then you get the two guys who have a screen story credit on this movie, along with Stephen Sommers, who they were the ones who brought it back to like the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
But their version is like a remake of the sequels.
Hmm.
Like it's super violent, super gory, and like there's a couple elements that carried over to this, like the period setting. The main sort of hero character is like an ex French Foreign Legionnaire whose name is O'Connell. But his
Okay.
name is Brian O'Connell, which just makes me think of the Fast and the Furious.
That sure does.
And there's like the desert tribesmen guarding the tomb and stuff like that. But other than that, it's pretty different.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting that they that has its origins prior to Stephen Sommers coming on.
Yeah, and then you get Stephen Sommers who came in and pitched. And what's interesting is that before this movie, he was kind of a Disney director
Hmm.
because he did like one indie movie when he got out of film school, which I haven't seen. He did the Huck Finn movie for Disney with young Elijah Wood.
Mm-hmm.
He did a live action Jungle Book, which is kind of like a prototype version of this because it's taking like a classic story, doing like an Indiana Jones thing with it, which I remember being pretty good.
Yep.
And then he did Deep Rising, which was Disney but Touchstone, and it was kind of a similar adventure thing, but it was R-rated.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a massive bomb because they dumped it out in like February or something like that.
Yep.
And that movie's pretty good. And then he comes to Universal and does this.
Yeah. Yep. And then he hits his stride because he's obviously a huge fan of Universal monsters and lots of incarnations and
Yeah,
stuff.
he
so-
does 3 of those movies, and then he does G.I. Joe, and then
and then disappears.
yeah, he did Odd Thomas, which I hear good things about, but that got caught in like legal issues or something where like the distributors were all suing each other, so it got dumped on VOD.
And he hasn't done anything since. Like he's
No.
credited as a producer on the Scorpion King sequels. I think that's because he invented the Scorpion King character.
Yes,
they
that
credit
would
him,
have to
like,
be that
anyway.
because there's actually one of the producers on this movie who produced. I don't think I don't know if he had a producer credit. No, he passed away in like 2014.
Mm-hmm.
His he had producer credits on the main 3 movies and on the Scorpion King, and he had executive producer credits on all the Scorpion King sequels even after he died.
Yep. Exactly. So it's a situation like that where like Stephen Sommers isn't even in the room when they're making these weird shitty DVD movies.
Nope.
Like he's just getting a royalty paycheck and they throw his name on there because
Yeah.
he is vanished from like Hollywood. He hasn't done anything since Odd Thomas, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he hasn't. And he also did like some consulting on the 3rd movie, but it wasn't like a lot.
I'm sure he was just there to read the script and go, yeah, all right, you guys can do this, I guess.
Yeah,
Not that they would need his permission
in
anyway.
2005, he gave notes on a draft. Mm-hmm. Which I think I've read that one, so we'll get there.
We will get there. Okay, so that's the context for the first Mummy and how it came about.
So let's get back to the plot.
Let's get back to it. I don't hate it. The characters are really, to me, like what kind of makes or breaks a big movie like this.
They're kind of broad.
They're yeah. And I found that they're not very complex or deep, but I've realized they're very likable.
They're very fun and likable, yes.
They're fun. They got character traits and mannerisms that stay consistent, and it's how they react to the crazy events that hook you in through all three of them. Even the third one, which is so disconnected from the first two. Mm-hmm. It's still like the reason why that movie, to me, is enjoyable is because you maintain that Rick O'Connell relationship with his family and stuff.
I'm going to disagree on that when we get there.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But, no, so the characters are what kind of make or break it. Otherwise, you just have, like, a boring horror movie. You know what I mean? But in that same ilk, there were so many quips, I expected the Marvel Studios logo to pop up. It's almost a comedy.
They actually cut some quips from the movie, too.
They cut quips, probably because it would have been a comedy.
Yeah, well, what they did is that they cut... He talks... Sommers and Duce, his editor, who's also Rian Johnson's editor now.
Oh, shit, okay.
Yeah, he edited both Knives Out movies, and I think he edited Last Jedi. But they talk about how, like, they would have lines, they would have jokes that they would cut, because even though they got a good laugh, they would just needed to make the movie shorter.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like when they first see the regenerated Imhotep, the fully regenerated one at the end when they're in the street, originally Evie was supposed to go, he's gorgeous.
Okay, understandable. That's actually pretty funny because Arnold Vosloo is a dashing man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the quantity of comedy. I mean, I think it's, for what it is, if that's what it's trying to do, it succeeds at
It's trying to be the lighthearted adventure movie.
The lighthearted adventure. Look, I think that the comedic way is probably the best direction they could have taken it, because you can't go full serious. We've seen that. 2017's The Mummy.
Yeah.
You can't go that full direction because I think you lose, unless it's really well written, you lose that aspect of adventure.
Not if you're doing the action movie version. You can't do like the Tom Clancy Mummy.
Yeah, it just doesn't connect with people, you know. But yeah, I enjoyed quite a bit of it, but I did not enjoy it overall. I sadly still give this film a negative review.
But
we'll get to reviews at the end. But
is it up from 3?
Thinking, I didn't pre-write down my scores. I'm just thinking about it, having rewatched it. I think either 3 or 4 is appropriate. It's close. It's not bad. It's bad. It's not great. I'm
going to shock you with my score at the end of this.
All my notes are the positive aspects that I found out about the movie.
Yeah.
Like, they're fun characters. I have other notes here I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I only have like 5 or 6 notes. Virtually everything else to me, I wasn't connecting with. I didn't find the collection of chase sequences just strung together all that engaging, because, I mean, the characters are fun to be around, but, like, it's not like they have, like, arcs. It's not like they have, like, anything going on. It's a romance, which is interesting at first, but I think that's why part 2 is, like, a step down even, because they're already together. It's not like they struggle, you know?
No, yeah, I can see what you mean by that. It's the moonlighting problem.
Exactly. Yeah, and to finish out kind of what I enjoyed, it has great sound design and editing, and the technical aspects and the beetle effects are really fun. They even hold up. I would say those effects hold up really well. There are aspects that are genuinely enjoyable, even for a guy like me who does not like the overall movie. Like, I still found quite a bit of enjoyment. That's why I'm kind of leaning more towards 4 than 3 out of 10, because it's not like a terrible movie. It's not a train wreck. If it's on in the background, I genuinely don't mind it. You know what I mean? I'm not pissed off like I am with 2017's Mummy or something like that. So
I'm at a point where that movie doesn't even piss me off anymore. It just bores the ass off me.
It does. It's so unwatchable.
It's so weird that, because Tom Cruise normally doesn't fuck up that badly.
Normally, yeah. I think that was a a producer-made movie. There wasn't a
Yeah.
creative vision there, sadly. But yeah, no. So that's kind of my overall mentality. That's me being very nice about the first Mummy, even though I didn't enjoy it. That's me compliment sandwiching it. But we can get into negatives as
Yeah.
what do you think about the Mummy movie overall?
I still really enjoy it. I've got some criticisms I'll get to, but I think the action's good. I think the pace is good. I enjoy the characters. The humor does mostly make me laugh. There's no joke here where I'm just like, oh god, get that out of this movie.
Yep, there's
There's
not a
no.
whole lot of
It's not Michael Bay humor.
yes. Yes.
They don't cut to like dogs fucking. They don't do any of that shit. It works for what it is. The thing I really admire about it is that even though it's like a completely different type of movie from what the original movie is, it takes the core of that original movie, which is about Imhotep and his tragic kind of romance, and him trying to bring Ankhsenamen back to life and then getting cursed for it and then put in the tomb and then coming back years later and trying to bring her back. It keeps all that intact, just with different set dressing.
Yeah. It does.
So it's a remake. It works pretty well as a remake to me.
It does. It
Just-
makes a hefty amount of changes from a movie that I didn't think was perfect in my mind anyway with that first Boris Karloff movie. Spoiler, that first Boris Karloff is still my favorite of the Mummy movies,
Oh my god.
including the remakes now.
I mean, this movie is really its only competition in that group.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, no, so I think I generally agree. I think most of the decisions made to reboot this Mummy movie are, if they don't hit it out of the park, they're well intentioned. It doesn't feel like a soulless remake. It's definitely got a lot of personality. But I think in terms of what the movie's trying to do, it's so, and maybe if you grew up with it, it's a different mindset.
Yeah, same. I saw this in the theater.
I saw it in the background on VHS once when I was a kid. So
I had the
didn't really have
VHS. I had the VHS of the first two movies.
I have memories of scenes. I remember the dude's mouth going super low. Like, that's a impactful memory for
The
me.
sand face.
The sand face, all that stuff. But I never grew up with like watching this movie all the time, like a lot of people did. So I don't have that prior connection. I don't know. Just going into it today, it's Brendan Fraser is doing the most with what he has. He is giving it his absolute all, in the same way that Boris Karloff elevates that first Mummy movie. I think Brendan Fraser is doing the same thing here. If you cast someone else that's not as energetic in that lead role, I think the movie is like a 2. Like, he's a lot of what's carrying.
I love how the character is just like, I love how they balance the comedy and the badass with that character. Because that was the big surprise as a kid, was like, really, they're gonna have George of the Jungle do like action movie stuff, and they're like, it works.
It does. It works because the movie is a vehicle for him. It's in Hollywood, it's literally called a vehicle for him to do his thing. And I think they channel that really successfully to the point where it got those sequels. Like the Mummy Returns was like 2 years later. Like, it was
They should have taken more time on that one.
They probably should have, but not enough time to get to part 3. That's a long time.
That's too long. Yeah.
That's way too long. There's a sweet spot in the middle somewhere. But yeah, no. So the Mummy 1, I think it is better than the Mummy 2 for reasons
Oh god, yeah.
It's just, there's so much here that I'm trying to dance around talking about because all of my opinions are about 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, sure. Let me look up the movie real quick. Do you want to know who else was offered the role of Rick O'Connell?
Oh, please.
I'm gonna look. I'm pulling up the Wikipedia page right now.
I would love to hear this laundry list of notable Hollywood guys.
So the producer, he offered the role of Rick O'Connell to Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and this is the big one, Tom Cruise.
Did Tom Cruise say no?
He must have.
That's amazing.
It says they were either not interested or could not fit the role into their schedules.
That's really funny. I wonder if Tom Cruise was not interested, and then after they were successful, was interested in doing it himself. That would be very funny. Maybe Tom Cruise in the 90s probably could have saved that movie as well, but I think Brendan Fraser doing what he does is just, it's why the movie's so watchable.
Well, yeah,
despite how,
Tom Cruise, especially back then, I don't really associate with funny.
No, but there's a way you can play it where he's like kind of serious in the role, but everything else around him is ridiculous. Like, yeah, Brendan Fraser kind of does that.
Because I mean, Fraser is kind of doing like a almost like a Star-Lord,
Yeah, yeah.
where he's competent but kind of a dumbass at the same time.
Kind of an idiot, yeah. Yeah.
Not as stupid as like a Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China, which is basically like the
Yeah.
example of all this. But he does
Hmm.
have that kind of energy to him.
Right, and I think the difference there is that Rick O'Connell has a bit of a temper.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes in scenes where it's just like, oh, you're clearly just trying to do a bit here. A human being wouldn't probably do this, you know?
Yes,
But
I do like the running gag throughout all three movies that everywhere he goes, he is just strapped.
yeah. Oh, of course, you have to be. Why wouldn't you
Because
be?
I love the scene where he just in this one where he just dumps the bag on the table and opens it up, and it's just like a million guns.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's funny. By the time they get to the third one, like he just gets less and less impressed. Like, "Ugh, here we go again. Of course, there's a fucking
And
bummer
then
here.
in the
Jesus
third one,
Christ,
he
we've done
has
this."
like a massive fucking steamer trunk full of guns.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. Of
Which
course. This
that's
is what he does.
I don't like that scene, but we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. We'll get
Yeah,
to
but I mean,
again. The stuff to talk about is in part 3. I'm telling you.
yeah, I mean, the thing is that this movie is a movie I know so well. Discussing it feels very strange.
It does. And I'm kind of in the boat where it's like the stuff I want to talk about is in parts 2 and 3. I can only talk about part 2 comparing it to 1, and then part 3 is like, oh my god, so much crazy shit's going on in part 3.
Yeah,
So,
but I mean, I think mainly another thing that makes it work is I think the romance does work because those two do have really good chemistry.
yes, absolutely.
Even if his wife is like a different character in all three movies.
Yes, yes, sometimes a different actress, sometimes it's a weird retcon, sometimes there's a lot going on.
Oh god, the retcons in Returns are just
Return Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about returns.
so. At the beginning, they decide to curse Imhotep, and they curse him by making him immortal and giving him superpowers.
Yes.
Why? And that feeds into a bigger thing, which is the whole thing about him being like the scion of the end of the world. He's going to bring the 10 plagues back and they're going to destroy everything. Feels kind of tacked on for the sake of like set pieces.
It was always weird to me because like in all 3 of these movies the magic is very like, oh, we're just gonna tell you what happened instead of giving us a clear power set or anything. It's like, oh yeah, we gave him this curse that entombs him but also gives him every superpower ever and he's amazing, and if he comes back he'll destroy everything. It's like, how, like, what I really wish I knew, like, because if I understand the magic better, then when it's implemented, it's like, oh, well, that actually tracks. Like, I think movies like Doctor Strange does this kind of well, even though there's a little bit of mystery with that power set. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
The first one does it well. Doctor Strange 2, I think, kind of spirals into like he can just do anything. Um, Movies that do it well. Harry Potter, I think, doesn't define its magic very well in the beginning movies, but then as it goes on, it gets more clear as to what's happening. This, yeah, no, it's like, yeah, take your pill and swallow it. You just gotta go take it and move on. We're just never gonna get into the lore. You
Well,
know?
it's just weird because they talk about the whole world ending thing, like that's going to happen regardless if he wakes up, but he doesn't seem to notice.
Yeah.
Like he seems to be specifically using the powers for things, and it's just a weird plot point. Like he doesn't seem like a psychotic dude who would want to end the world.
Yep.
Unless what there's all they needed was like a line of dialogue saying he went fucking crazy from being entombed alive and slowly eaten by bugs. And also, I feel like there was a version of this written where Evie was the reincarnation. Because
Potentially.
otherwise, why would you have a scene where he looks at her and calls her by that name? Now, I know Stephen Sommers, he said the explanation is because he stole the eyes from the guy who needs glasses to see.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like they're trying to cover.
Yeah,
You know, to
it sounds
cover
like
a flaw in the script.
it sounds like they're covering up a rewrite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now it's just a dangling thread. But
But
yeah.
yeah, this movie came out, made tons of money.
Yeah. So they were like, wow, let's do a second one as fast as humanly possible.
Yep. And they apparently had some ideas in place before the first one came out because in the commentary, which is they say is recorded like a month before release, Sommers says, "Oh yeah, we really like this actress who plays Anxanam, and we'll bring her back at the big way if we do a second one." And they do.
They sure do. Yep.
And I have so many problems with that.
I think we have the exact same problems with part 2. Like part
Yes.
2 is borderline nonsensical in terms of the story. What would you give the first one out of 10?
I'm
upon
gonna
rewatch?
give the first one an 8.
Oh, okay. All right.
Also, do you want to play budget and box office?
I'd love to. It had to be high on both regards, so I'm gonna go
Yes.
with 1999. I'm gonna say I don't know. Let's say $80 million because inflation, deflation went backwards, and let's just say 500 million.
You are dead on the budget, 80 million.
Yay!
And you are over on the box office. It's 416.4 million.
I think I was pretty close in both regards.
You were pretty close. You just missed slightly. And
Very
do
slightly.
you want to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score?
Of the first one,
Yes.
let's say 75%.
Okay, this is one where I have to go back in time a little bit. For years and years, it was at 58%. And then
Interesting.
around 2019, 2020-ish, Rotten Tomatoes expanded their number of critics and added a bunch of, let's be honest, people who aren't actually critics. They added a bunch of YouTubers and bloggers,
Yep.
and it bumped up to 60%.
Sure. Not that much of a difference though.
Alright,
60.
alright.
So, but that's the difference between fresh and rotten. I see why you're bringing that up.
Yeah, so it got bumped up to a fresh.
Yeah. I was like, that doesn't matter. Oh wait, it matters.
All right, so Mummy Returns.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's get it. This is
Did
now.
did
gonna
I say
come
my
alive.
score of the first one?
8. Yeah, you doubled
Eight.
my
Eight.
4 out of 10.
I doubled your 4.
Okay. So part 2. This is gonna come to no
Okay,
shock. To you.
I'm just
Exposition
looking
opening.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page right now. Holy shit, is that a lot of floating heads on the poster?
Yes. Oh yeah.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's the CG Dwayne Johnson too.
Oh, easily. Of course. You got to market your WWE superstar, even though he's unrecognizable in the CGI.
So I want to start this movie this discussion by saying the Stephen Sommers commentary. It's recorded 2 months after release. This time,
Okay.
and not only is both him and Bob Ducey extremely salty over Roger Ebert's negative review, because they bring it up 3 times throughout the entire commentary. But they also, one of the first things Stephen Sommers says, is that if I could have changed anything about the first movie, it's make it less funny, more scary, and I think we hit that mark this time.
Oh, did you?
Because I mean, I actually like that the first movie is lightly kind of a horror movie. It's got some of those scenes in there. It's got some of those elements. This really doesn't have that.
My whole mentality on that is if you're doing comedy, do it well. If you're doing horror, do it well. I think the first one does comedy well, and there's little to no horror. The second one, I think it does both not great.
Yeah, and I would say I do think the action is mostly good in this one. That's the thing they really nail. Aside from that,
the action is about as good as part 1 is. It's a bunch of chase sequences that, for me, they just don't connect. Well, first of all, the exposition opening is back and it's stronger than ever. It's another 10
It's
minutes of our
worse.
lives. It's worse. They pack in so much because of what they're doing with the retcon. We'll get to the retcon, but they pack in so much there. And again, you watch the movie, all of that fucking information is revealed anyway.
it's really fun. One thing I find really funny about the intro is that the Scorpion King, his battle cry at the beginning, that's one of the only things that's not subtitled. You know what he's saying?
No,
Because I looked this up. He's saying it's hot as hell.
really?
Yes.
That's as a battle cry?
That's he says it's hot as hell. So I guess they put that in there as a joke and didn't subtitle it.
That's really funny. I didn't pick up on that. I'm so glad they did that.
And I want to start this by saying there is a real historical Scorpion King. Has nothing in common with this.
I'm sure they just took the words because it sounded cool.
He's just basically the evidence of his existence. This is before Egypt was unified. Lower and Upper Egypt were unified. They found a ritual mace with a carving on it, and there's a pharaoh with a scorpion next to his head, so they call him King Scorpion.
Yep. Yeah, that's the extent of the Egyptology on that one.
Because, I mean, in the movies, he's not even Egyptian.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, he's Akkadian.
He is definitely Akkadian, which, of course, the sequels just hammer home.
Yeah, it's so weird. And it's not even mentioned in this. It doesn't become a thing, and really, because it's in the script, which I glanced at. I didn't read the whole thing. But because it says oh, he's Akkadian, and there's a weird thing in this script that's only very briefly referenced in the movie. in the script, there's like this Akkadian like ritual or something that they all undergo, and he has like the skin has been cut off the top of his head,
Yep.
and the only reference to it in the movie is when Imhotep at the end pretends to be his servant. He does this, which is meant to be a reference to that was orphaned.
Very funny. Very funny how those little relics pop up. When I watched the opening, the first thought I had was, man, The Rock looks so small compared to today.
Oh yeah,
Like,
because he buffed up for Pain and Gain, and he just never went down again.
no, of course. Of course. It's just Instagram stories every single day. Guys, I'm working out again. Like, it's just constant.
Guys, I'm gonna take over the DC universe.
Yeah, it worked out so well. It's the CGI is more impressive, maybe because there's more of it.
It's more ambitious.
It's more ambitious. Yes,
A
that's a good
lot
word
of it
for
is really bad, though.
Yes, the water face is no way. Like, no
And that's
way.
not even the worst thing in the movie.
No, it's not. Of course, it's not. The end character is the worst thing in the
And
movie.
I mean, even in the intro, when like the Anubis warriors are sacking the city, they go out of their way in the commentary. I can never unsee this now. They go out of their way in the commentary to point out like the last 3 rows of guys aren't even really walking. They're just kind of moving like they're roller skating.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but I believe it completely.
And it's
really
super
funny.
weird that they present Anubis as basically being Satan in this,
Yep, he's
which
just
is
the evil
not
guy.
at all his role in Egyptian mythology.
No. It's much more interesting than that. And
Gods of Egypt did it better.
sadly, yes. I like how Anubis. So, a couple things. One, the CGI Anubis is just ridiculous. It's laughable. He does this weird roar thing, and get it off my screen. Yeah, get it off my screen. It has nothing to do with anything.
He
You don't
makes
even
an
need it.
Ian noise.
It still makes sense with the movie if you just don't include the weird CGI Anubis. But Scorpion King Book of Souls also flashes back to
That's
Anubis,
right.
and this time it's a live-action guy in a mask. And it's like, what is happening? So,
Which is perfectly fine to do because Anubis is a guy with a dog head.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, if you're going to claim that it's the Scorpion King, then it's the most inconsistent, let alone the race changing.
Let's not even get into the sequels because they clearly didn't give a shit about connecting to The
No.
Mummy Returns. The third
No,
one kind of did, but even that was like, what the fuck?
The third one is notably kind of trying to, which is very funny.
And then they made
But
2
yeah.
more that had nothing to do with it.
Not even a little thing. I think when I was saying it's more impressive, I think there are some impressive shots. Like when
Yes.
they're on the double-decker bus and Ardith Bay, I think that's the driver, is Ardith, right?
That's the tattoo face?
Yeah, tattoo face. He shoots one of the guys with a machine gun through the stomach, but it still roars and like kind of moves toward him.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a fun whole sequence when they're just chasing. This is a contrast with Mummy 1 where I didn't really connect with the chase scenes. That's like the one chase scene in both of these movies where it's like, oh, okay, I'm kind of in it.
Yeah,
I'm
you like double-decker bus chase scenes. You liked it in
I
Live and
do
Let
like
Die.
double. Yeah, I like double-decker buses. I think Dark Phoenix's best point is probably that double-decker bus fight.
I don't even remember that fight.
Of course you don't.
It's Dark Phoenix.
Very forgettable movie. Yeah, that's
But-
not to be blamed on
Yeah,
you.
that's part of the reason why with this movie I kind of like the first 40-ish minutes of it because you have that really good action scene, some pretty decent action scenes in there, and like the really bad plot stuff doesn't really start seeping in until after they get to Egypt.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of as the movie goes on, I agree. It kind of tapers down and then just tanks at the end. But for me, the characters were less interesting because
Yes.
a lot of this movie is the Rick O'Connell's son and that servant guy, and it's just their camaraderie back and forth. And
Yeah,
man,
it's him and Killer Croc.
him and Killer Croc, Adewale, yeah,
Yes.
you could cut every single one of those scenes out. The movie's the same. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't add anything. It's just there to try and make kids laugh. Maybe I don't
do
know
think it's
what they were
kind of
doing.
funny when he stabs the table and he goes, "Oh yeah, perfect aim. I miss." That's kind of funny.
Yeah, that didn't really.
It's
really
weird that
jive with me.
they almost start to build him up as a rival to Ardith Bay, and then it's really not much of anything, and then he just kills him.
Yeah, no, it didn't really matter at all.
But I mean, stuff I like in this movie. Brendan Fraser's still good.
Yes,
Rachel Weisz is still doing good, even though her character is, because of the retcons and stuff, it's still pretty stupid.
the actress is doing good.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool having, like, I mean, John Hannah as Jonathan is great in all three of these movies, I think. He's the most consistent character across all three.
He's consistent.
I find him very funny. Like, that whole scene where he's got the knife to his throat and Brendan Fraser walks in just goes like, I thought I said no more wild parties.
I like him the best in the first one. I think he's used the right amount in the first one. And I think they looked at him and went, he's a fan favorite. Let's put him in all these fucking scenes. And he's just all over the second and third ones.
He has some really bad moments in 3.
Yeah, his entire scenes after the nightclub could just be cut. Better movie. I'm saying the same thing about part 2 with the kid and the servant. Like, take it out. It doesn't add anything.
And even the kid, not the worst child actor I've ever seen.
No, I mean, as far as child actors,
he's no Jake Lloyd.
He's no Jake Lloyd. You know, he's a step above. But
he's no Daniel Radcliffe either.
It's not the acting of the kid that took me away from that character.
Yeah, that's true.
The writing. It's the fact that the character just wasn't interesting. Like,
he makes insanely good sandcastles.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually there's a funny story about that on the commentary where they went to the production designer and said, "What kid would make a sandcastle this elaborate?" And he goes, "Well, I did."
That's pretty funny. But yeah, see, there's a funnier joke than the jokes in the movie that were intentional.
Some of them, yeah.
I think it's kind of amusing how Rick and Evelyn barely made it out with their lives last movie, and after getting incredibly lucky, they're like, let's do exactly what caused that again, this time with our son. I thought that was absurd.
Yes.
Like, at least in the third one, they're trying not to awaken more mummies, and they're dragged back in. We'll get to the plot.
But it's so weird, because in the third one, they're like, we don't want you going off on expeditions everywhere, and I'm like, what changed your mind?
I don't know, like, I think they almost died twice. That's why I don't like the second one as much, because why would they go back to it?
That's what they do.
They almost died.
Rick is like an adrenaline junkie, and Evie really is passionate about Egyptian archaeology.
Yeah, you can be teach Egyptology in classes. You can do other things in your career that don't almost kill you twice. And Rick can just go on roller coasters, man. And look, I like how at the start of part 3, he has to be kind of convinced, but you can see it's in him. It's like, oh, I kind of want to go. I shouldn't go.
Don't get me started on 3 yet.
We'll get to 3. I want to talk about 3 when we get there.
In this one, he doesn't want to go. Like, they get home, and she's trying to talk him into going and looking for the oasis. He goes like, no, we just got home.
Yeah.
And they make the really, like, the one joke that really doesn't work is they make, like, the obvious Napoleon joke.
Mm-hmm.
Because she talks like, oh, Napoleon sent soldiers looking for He goes, yeah, we're smarter than him, and we're taller.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think it's as far as a sequel, it was like so shortly. They had no time to conceive it, so they're like, what's like the easiest? Oh, bring him back. Oh, bring everyone back. Oh, he has a kid.
Oh, he has another pilot friend.
Another pilot friend. You know, like, oh, that fan favorite character, just put him in more of it. You know, just jokes. It's like, I think it needed. You're absolutely right. They needed more time than 2 years to gestate with the idea. I think you could have made The Mummy Returns better than the first one.
Yes.
I think there's so much path here to make it an improvement, and they really rushed it. They kind of retreaded it, not just with the villain, but like kind of with the same story.
A little bit, yeah.
They're doing literally the same thing again.
So can I just get into my problems here? First off,
okay, but well, I was just gonna say, save the retcon, because we already.
I'm going to save the retcon. I'm going to push that to the side.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so every CGI shot is terrible. Almost all of them.
Really? Okay.
No, not almost all of them, but like a lot of them are like that transition from like the burning city to the modern day looks like PS1 quality.
It does.
Them flying around in the dirigible, where they're in space, that looks terrible. The Anubis warriors, I mean, for 2001, they're not the worst, but they're also not good. There's like the weird scene where the mummy picks up like a CGI vase. It's like very, very obvious. When they acted,
Yeah.
because in the first movie they also made the very smart decision to not show what happens when he like steals their life force.
Mm-hmm.
They show it in this one. He's like Spider-Manning around, and it just does not look good.
I kind of enjoyed the effects when he drains the life force and like you see the skin materialize. I mean, yeah, it's 2001. It's never gonna
With
be
you know
top tier.
that actor he does that to. He's in Van Helsing.
Really? That's so funny.
He's the top hat guy.
Of course he is. He shows up all the time in Steven Sommers stuff. That makes sense. But yeah, that's really funny that that's the case. But I enjoyed that. I thought, getting past the 2001 effect of it all, I
Yeah.
thought the concept of the effect was awesome. Like the sucking of the
Yeah.
skin and like I thought that was really cool and visually interesting. That's why I'm saying like
Possibly, yeah.
there are impressive shots that are very, I would even say, creative, despite how rushed other parts of the movie are.
Yeah, and like I do like the set piece with the pygmy mummies. That's got some good funny stuff in it.
Yeah, it's fun.
But like, yeah, but
It's
I mean,
fun.
there's just a lot of like bad in this. Like
Yes.
the big
tons.
thing everyone talks about, but it's like everything else also looks pretty bad.
Yes. You're absolutely right. Like, there's so many videos on YouTube like, oh, Scorpion King is the worst effects ever in all of cinema. It's like they didn't know there was no precedent, not very little precedent for like a full CG head replacement.
It was the first
Or,
time they tried.
Yeah, first time they tried to like fully animate and create a CG photoreal person like ever in Hollywood. And yeah, it's not exactly a person, it's like a monster-ish thing, but you're trying to put a human face on it. And going into that shot, they probably thought, wow, computer graphics have come a long way. Let's see what we can do. And then they realized very quickly, oh, it's way harder than we first thought. But now we've made the movie, so we can't go back. you know?
But also, okay, who are the villains in this movie? Do you know?
Scorpion King.
I don't mean him. I mean the weird secret society that's backing him up.
I thought that was Imhotep's guys.
Yeah, they're backing up. They go get him, but it's never explained who they are. They're just
Weren't
these
they
guys.
from the first one?
No, they're not.
No? Jesus Christ.
No, they're not. They're just guys who wear red hats, and then they.
Huh.
I have like a fan theory, but it's complete bullshit.
Hit me.
Okay, so those same kind of like red turban hats, the bad guys in the first Scorpion King movie wear those.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that was
forget
just
what
them
you've done.
being cheap and reusing props or whatnot, but
Yes, but that doubles as being a better explanation.
yeah, so they're basically the servants of the bad guy from that movie who are trying to basically topple the Scorpion King and steal his power in the modern day. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to take that a step further. They're the ones who retrieved the books from Hymenoptera. They're based in the
okay.
British Museum. Where do we see the gold book in Tom Cruise's life?
Wow. I see how you've done this. You've come full circle.
They
Oh,
become
man.
Prodigium eventually.
This is a future episode that I would love to talk about. But we'll save that story for another time. Yes, you could absolutely prodigium everything.
Yes. It's more thought put into it than I think was put into the entire Mummy 2017.
More thought put into it than was put into these movies in the Scorpion King.
Yes. Especially the sequels to the Scorpion King.
especially. So yes, you're absolutely right. I think that's a much better explanation than the one they didn't give. But yeah, I got no notes left except the big retcon.
Okay, the other thing I want to say is that when they bring Imhotep back in this, he just skips steps in his regeneration.
Does he?
Yeah, because he doesn't have to steal anybody's eyes or tongue in this.
Interesting.
He's at when he first comes back, he's at the point after he gets back to Cairo and then drains the guy he blinded. The blind man that he then blinded.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that's because they brought him back and he had already done that stuff.
Possibly, but then he has to. They also have to go get the box the book was in, and then have people open it because why?
See, this is another problem I have with the fact that the magic is so undefined. Like the best they do is just say, "Oh, read this book passage and he'll explode. Oh, this dagger will stab the mummy." They don't give any more like why. What's relevant about that? Why does he have superpowers?
The dagger wasn't that Tom Cruise's Mummy?
No, that's Mummy 3.
Oh God, yeah.
A film highly fresh in my mind to reiterate for the audience.
And I didn't even watch it that long ago.
I mean, either.
But no, yeah, but it's just weird because the whole reason why he needed to do that was because the canopic jars were also in the box. There's nothing in that box. The curse has been fulfilled. So why does he have to do it again? Why couldn't they just magic him back? I don't know.
Because to put that much thought into the script meant you needed more time.
I guess they wanted the monster form of the mummy in the movie again, which I can kind of understand.
Sure, they wanted to do all the fun stuff again because this movie is rehashing a lot of the first one.
Oh, one little detail I do like in the movie is when he's talking to the kid. They establish that the kid understands ancient Egyptian because of his parents, and then they just kind of zoom in on his face and then switch to English. That's really cool. That's like the Hunt for Red October.
Yes, I love when movies and shows do that. Warrior is one of my favorite examples of that, when they do that. But I don't like it in Avatar 2. I think they did that because they were lazy.
Avatar 2.
They invented a language and then chose to speak English.
Way of Whale.
Yeah, exactly. To mention a little more on the subject, the Scorpion King effects are obvious.
Unfinished.
But very unfinished. But I also think, like, the inclusion of the character, it feels like he's not even relevant. Like, he's there in the prologue to set up the end, but then he doesn't even appear until the end, and then he's almost instantly vanquished.
He's MacGuffin.
Such a non-threat. He's just a MacGuffin. He's not even like a villain. Like, he's the threat, but he's not established very well.
Yeah, it's like they want to steal his power to take over the world, and so they get Imhotep because he can be enough of a badass to do it, but that doesn't matter because he walks over the magic stamp on the floor and it like steals his powers at the end.
Yeah. No, I wasn't really connecting with it. It reminded me a lot of the Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh, God.
Because that movie is about Spider-Man and Harry Osborn and the blood and the chemicals and the thing, and Electro is just there, unrelated, gets complete superpowers, and then like that's supposed to be like the bait and switch end villain where it goes back to Harry Osborn. I feel the same way about Scorpion King, where very little rewriting work could take the Scorpion King completely out of the movie. It might be better.
Or take Imhotep out of the movie, make it all about the Scorpion King.
Yeah, which I think Mummy 3 did. Just completely do something new.
Yeah, which is something
like
I will give it credit for.
We'll get there when we get there. I have so much to talk about. But
and I do like the end for Imhotep's character in this, where he finds out that this whole shit he went through was all for nothing. That was good.
Yep.
That's actually a really solid character moment right at the end.
So that's kind of my thought process on that. Not that the Scorpion King doesn't like it's not that I necessarily want him out of the movie. I think if you're going to put him in the movie, you should make him more of a presence, which sucks because you make him show up in the last 15 minutes.
It would have been way better if he showed up just as The Rock.
That would have been sick.
And he rock bottoms Brendan Fraser.
Yeah. Or if the effects look good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's just throwing that out there.
Put the actor in a harness and CGI the Scorpion part.
Yeah, that would have been actually pretty cool.
But who knows? Maybe Dwayne needed to go to WrestleMania or something while they were filming that.
Exactly. They just had his likeness. They
borrowed his likeness from the WWE games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's barely in the movie that's apparently revolving around him as a villain. So,
it's his movie debut. I mean, he said that one line in Ancient Egyptian pretty well and went, "Oh, damn you, son."
It's hot as hell. And that's about it. Yeah. So, all right. You got anything else before we talk about Evelyn? Because I'm ready.
The reincarnation of Ankhsenamen doesn't make any sense. So he partially brings her back at the end of the first movie. This movie is only 8 years... Oh, I didn't even mention the timeline discrepancy.
Oh, yeah. Please get into it.
Where the first movie, the modern day part, starts in 23. There's a 3-year time skip to 1926.
Mm-hmm.
And they have an 8-year-old kid in this, and it's 1932, I think they say at the beginning.
Sure.
So they just forgot about the 3-year time skip when they were writing this. But
yep, they sure did. They were like, wow, let's not put thought into it.
But it's only been a few years. She shows up as a grown-ass adult woman saying she is the reincarnation. Yet so my understanding of reincarnation is that it's the soul of a dead person reborn in a new body, right?
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
Later on in the movie, he has to put the soul back in her. Now, I'm done.
Yeah, yeah, that makes little sense at all.
But to get into the retcon, I
Yes.
will say one positive thing about it is that it does explain why the Pharaoh's guards suddenly show up at the room at the beginning of the first movie. Other than that, stupid.
That fixes one problem and creates 20 more.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Also,
I,
the girl fight was something they considered for the first movie.
mm,
They wrote in
they
the
used it here.
scene of Rick teaching Evie how to fight, so because they were going to do a fight, and then they decided not to do a fight.
Fair enough. But that's okay. It pays off here.
Well, she doesn't even.
Um,
It doesn't pay off because she doesn't learn to fight from him. She learns to fight because she just, I don't know, the reincarnation set in finally.
yeah. No, in the first movie, she's just an Egyptologist with no idea about the mummy being an actual living thing. You're telling me this random character who happened to accidentally free the mummy in the first film by reading that inscription just happens to literally be his wife's reincarnation the entire time?
Well, she's not his
Like,
wife's reincarnation. She's the Pharaoh's daughter.
the pharaoh, or yeah, the pharaoh's daughter. She is that ancient Egyptian like reincarnation of that person.
Yeah.
When in the first one there was no inkling of that at all.
No, and do we have to mention the fact that they've now made Rick into Jesus, basically?
Yeah, yeah. There's
He's the prophesied savior of humanity now.
yeah, of course, of course.
Which they got so lucky with the fact that you never see his wrist in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
He either has the jacket on at the beginning or he has the weird strap thing covering it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot about this movie that there's it completely diverges from what little lore there was in the first one.
Yeah.
Like I can't stand the coincidence of Evelyn she was just there. She was just a character. She's not like it's not like she went there with like I have a feeling to go to this tomb for some strange reason, and then we reveal the reasons because she's in. Like, there's none of that. There's not even a little bit, and there's only the guards of the tomb at the start, which is barely anything.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'll give it. Aside from that, it's like, okay, we got a decent-ish like knife fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even fucking know, man. I got a headache from thinking about this.
Good, because I'll put the nail in the coffin
It
here.
basically just turned it all into a bunch of like, oh, it was all fate from the beginning.
Yeah, no, it was super not fate in the first one.
No.
If you watch that movie, it's not fate.
I mean, if it was fate, I mean, the only thing that could be attributed to fate is the fact that his neck didn't break when they were hanging him.
Exactly.
Which is one of
barely
the
anything.
which actually has one of the funniest jokes in the movie where he goes like, "Yeah, loosen the knot and let me go."
Right?
Of course,
But
you
if
don't
it's all
let me go.
fate, if it's all fate, why should we have been worried about it in the first place? So whatever. I don't know. This movie is a 2 out of 10. I don't know what I gave it on Monsterthon time, but that's how I feel. It's not
I'm
great.
very conflicted on my score. Also, I will say they got very lucky that Benny happened to steal the scepter when he was stealing gold from Hymenoptera.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Big time.
Or else the Scorpion King would have just killed everybody.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Do you want to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score?
Oh my god. I'm gonna go with 25%.
Okay, and it is. This is a very short Wikipedia page, by the way. It doesn't even have any production info.
Nice.
It is
Saying that's
47.
good. Wow, that's still not and still below 50. But hey, mixed reviews. Strange. Why do people like it? I don't get it.
And you want to do budget and box office?
Yeah, now we're getting into money. Let's do 120 million.
For
and
budget?
it probably I don't know. And then it probably made 450 million.
Okay, you went over on budget. It's 98 million.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And box office is 435 million, so you were pretty
That was
close.
pretty close. All right. Okay.
So
Not
it
bad,
made
not bad.
roughly similar numbers to the first movie.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And my
so-
score, I feel like that 47% is extremely fair. But I'm somewhere between a 3 and a 4.
Okay.
The
yeah.
stuff I like does not override the stupid.
You're how I feel about the first one.
It's just,
That's really funny.
you have to admit, it's a lot more stupid than the first one is.
It is. Oh, I fully admit it's worse. It's the worst of the three, and we're gonna talk about it.
I don't know. Oh wait, I gotta say this. It was the one of four consecutive Universal films of the year to cross the $40 million line in an opening weekend, with others being American Pie 2, The Fast and the Furious, and Jurassic Park 3. And it remained in the number one spot at the box office for 2 weeks until Shrek took it.
Ooh, of course, because Shrek is a far better film and is good at all.
Oh, yeah, I would agree. Shrek is great.
Shrek is great. But speaking of Shrek, here comes part 3. The Mummy the Third.
This movie actually missed the year of the threequels.
It sure did. Man, okay. There's so much to say here. This is its own episode, but like I'm genuinely excited we're here. So this is my favorite one of the three still.
Oh god.
I see why people don't like this one nearly as much, because if you're a big fan of those first two, it's disappointing. It has very little to do with those movies. It barely addresses those events except in like a quick one-liner which is actually pretty funny.
There's a couple of times it addresses them, which are very. I'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get there, but it very passively it's like basically a soft reboot. It is canon. It's a sequel.
Yeah.
It continues the story. It continues the characters. You bring back the characters that people genuinely enjoy.
Kind of.
They're consistent, kind of. But yeah, no. So it is completely basically reimagining the franchise to be like a different type of movie. I think that is for the better. I think they made changes here with this third one, most of which improve upon 1 and 2. Most of which are things that they should have been doing from the start. So we can get into specific details. We can talk about
I'll let you lead this one. This is interesting.
All right. Well, I'll lead my thought process with saying that they didn't change anything about the stupid prologue that goes on for 10 minutes.
It's worse.
It is worse.
Because it includes stuff that really doesn't tell you anything.
It doesn't. I
two
feel
guys
like this is the longest one.
Two guys try to kill Jet Li. Why? Who cares?
I'm not going to go back to time them because why would I? But this feels like the longest prologue.
It feels like the most complicated.
The most stuff is going on in this prologue. And again, so much of it is information that gets revealed. Some of it isn't. Some of it is like, oh, it's important, we knew that. But once again, the compliments I'm giving it is like, still, shrink it half the runtime.
It also
Easy,
gives away kind of a twist.
With the witch? Or?
With the witch and her daughter?
Well, it doesn't mention that her daughter is the that one.
But it makes it obvious.
That's her daughter. It's not exactly well kept. But I don't know. I think it still works regardless. But no, I super do not like the prologue. In this one, I get why it's there. Of the three, this prologue needs to be there the most. But of the three, it needs to be cut down the most.
Oh, God.
I stand by that.
It also has some things out of order because he throws a knife at the map next to the Great Wall before the Great Wall has been built.
I didn't think about that. That's really funny. That's just like, hey, this would be visually kind of cool. Yeah, great idea. And none of the producers thought, like, wait a minute, that doesn't fucking track. So, but yeah, you can definitely feel not just the franchise shift, but the director change
and the writer change.
Like Stephen Sommers, Mummy 1, Mummy 2, Van Helsing. I love Van Helsing for many reasons, but those are all directed by the same guy. You can super tell. They all have the same
quirks,
flaws, and the same things that do work about them. This one is just different. All my criticisms aside, I think The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor is a step up from the first two movies on many levels. Just to talk about a couple of them, the color palette. The first two are so brown and washed out. And I think it's just visually a better experience, not just because the technology is better, it's now in HD, but the colors pop, it's more vibrant, it's easier to tell what's going on. The chase sequences, the camera, the choreography, it follows them better instead of just cutting back and forth and shaking a lot. Not that it was super bad in the first two. There are enjoyable parts of those chase sequences, but Mummy 3, I think, is where it has its best. Choreography, props to the first two for the choreography, like I'm saying, but like, I'm biased. I'm a fighting guy. The martial arts stuff is really fun. This is prime.
What little of it there is.
There's little, but it's still prime mid-2000s Jet Li action movie kind of thing. I wish he did more martial arts. They do weird CGI kicks sometimes, but I wish he did more. That'd be one of my criticisms. The drama. This is probably where we're going to disagree the most.
God, yes.
I think the three O'Connells reuniting makes for a better human story than just the two people falling in love or whatever happened in part 2 where they just are in love. I think here, with the reuniting of him and his son, trying to work that out, A, that is a character arc, unlike what was happening in 1 and 2. B, I think it makes for just that much more engaging. I'm not saying it's like the most well-written movie of all time. I'm very mixed on the movie. I got a lot of criticisms. But I think what's here is a step up in comparison to 1 and 2. I have more notes, but that's my gist.
Okay. Do you want me to get into that now, or do you want to wait?
I mean, like I have more positives and negatives, but that's kind of what right now. That, and I think the action, by and large, is a lot more fun. I
think the action's fine. I'm not like, it's not to me better, but for the most part, it's fine until you get to like some of the stuff near the end where he's like turning into where the wild things are.
Okay.
He turns into like Ghidorah for like a second.
All 3 movies have a lot of CGI. They all have great and weak effects, but for all the shit part 3 gets for the VFX, I'm sorry, but I'll take weird dragon CGI over Scorpion King CGI any day of the week.
That's not a contest. That's not a high bar.
It is, though. We're comparing it to the other 2. I think it's better.
It's better than 2. I'll give it that.
I don't know.
I'll say the CGI is better than 1. But I mean, it's 2008 as opposed to 1999.
Right. Like
it should be.
These are all flawed movies. But
I just think it looks. And there's that weird moment where he pops out of the fountain and it's a CG Jet Li face that's marginally better than the Scorpion.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. And when he first becomes a sentient terracotta man, that maybe it's because the computers literally couldn't render like texture, imperfections. But man, that was rough. Just like that gray blank slate was just there's no lighting.
And when the terracotta army awakes near the end, and it's like, oh, they just copy and pasted the same animation a million times.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's all you really could do. But yeah. No, it absolutely is not without flaw and criticism. But
and then when you get to the big battle scene at the end is not terribly engaging.
I thought the third act is really fun.
It's fine. And then you get they hyped up before this movie came out. They hyped up the fight between Jet Li and Michelle Yeoh, and it's nothing.
I thought they did.
There was like they hyped that up in like the behind the scenes thing they would play before the movies.
Really? See, I thought they hyped up Brendan Fraser versus Jet Li, which it is a fight at least, but it's not like a big karate thing.
Yeah, it's not anything. But no, that fight, the Michelle Yeoh fight, is like. It's a kind of a cool sword fight, but it's edited so poorly. Like, why did you even bother?
As the guy with the Mummy 3 most fresh in his mind of the two of us, I barely remember him fighting Michelle Yeoh. It was just not even. It didn't even.
They sword fight for like a minute, and it cuts like 1,000 times.
Yeah, no, that didn't register to me at all that it even happened. So maybe that's why I'm not disappointed by it.
But and I want to get into the characters in this.
Mm-hmm. Please.
They made Rick O'Connell into like a miserable, grumpy old guy in this.
Yep.
Where he's like depressed and sad. He can't even fish properly. And like their lives are like so unfulfilling. He's bored. He wants to go on an adventure again.
Yeah, that's in character.
It's but he was never this mopey.
Well, that's because he was stopping mummies in those first 2 movies.
Yeah, and they mentioned this whole history of like, oh, they were like spies during the war. You should have done that.
No way.
And it's like he's like falling asleep. He can only like catch a fish by shooting it for some reason.
Yeah, because he's ill-tempered, which
and they make him into way more of an idiot in this movie. I feel like because it's like he can barely speak in some scenes where he's like, yeah, Alex, it's like really, really big stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean the comedy is pretty hit or miss, but for me anyway, I think that's all consistent. Like he's always been that kind of like weird, awkward, brash, destroy everything first kind of personality. Like,
but he's just so like he just seems like Brendan. I'm gonna give a hot take on this movie. I feel like Brendan Fraser does not give a shit in this film.
Really?
He's like, here we go again.
I don't know. I see that more as the character doing that, because that's what I was saying. Like, at the third time a mummy reawakens and you're there, it's like, son of a bitch.
That's another. Okay, to step aside from the characters, Mummy.
He's a mummy. That counts.
He's a claymation man. He's not a mummy.
He's a mummy. He got mummified with magic. He's as much of a magical, superpowered mummy with mummification who comes back and destroys the whole world as was Arnold Vosloo in those first.
Yes, and I like the idea of them going to like a different location and doing something else, but they picked a culture that doesn't make mummies. But yeah, so I think Alex as an adult is even more annoying than he was as a kid, because there's a whole scene where he's like gets out this gun and starts dick measuring with his dad, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, kid?
I see. I don't know that scene. I'm not gonna say it's amazing of a scene, but I think that scene is super consistent with the whole trilogy of like, yeah, this is just a scene that's here for comedy. I think it's way funnier and more engaging than Adewale Kanoye Agbaje and that stupid kid from the second one.
That wasn't that engaging either, I will admit. Oh yeah, Dad, it's not about size, because he becomes Australian for a second.
He does.
It's not about size, it's about stamina.
To compare those two things that I'm mentioning as like comparisons, that scene that you're describing is less than a minute, and that was a recurring joke in The Mummy Returns, and it's like, get rid of all of it or make it way trimmed down.
Fair.
Can you imagine if they kept recurring later on in the movie, like, hey, my gun's big, hey, my, like, if they just...
Yeah, that would have been terrible. That would have been worse.
Just drove it into the ground. But
can I just mention, this version of Evie, terrible.
I don't see her as that much different.
Not just because of the recasting. She feels like a completely different person. Like, she's way more like pushy, and like the whole thing about like the family's fighting, and it's like, oh my god, do we need this typical fucking like teen movie drama in here?
Okay, so you're right that there is a difference. I buy it because so much time has passed. Like, Rick and Evie are in two different points in their lives at the start of Mummy 3 because they're not doing Mummies 1 and 2 anymore. You know, they've taken a break, they're chilling, they're trying to adapt to a normal life. And I love how, like, that's an arc. Like, at the start of Mummy 1, they're both like, holy shit, a mummy is loose, this is insane, what are we going to do? Now they're like, finally, like, they thought they wanted like a normal, no mummies are invading kind of life. Now it's like, oh shit, I'm bored. Like, I kind of like that lifestyle. I want to go back to it.
And the whole running gag about her having turned their lives into like a shitty book series.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
So bad.
I didn't like that.
And you know what? Okay, have you seen the Shanghai Noon movies?
I've not.
It's by the same two guys who wrote this.
Really? Okay.
Shanghai Nights, the second one, does the exact same joke.
Really?
Where Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson, their adventures got turned into like these shitty dime novels, one of which is, amusingly enough, called Roy O'Bannon versus the Mummy. About zombie Confederates, apparently.
I can't really think of an example, because that's a big trope, where they just, like, the stuff that happened, a character wrote about and made money off of. I think my favorite example might be, this is a deep cut, but the second Before Sunset movie. I think it's Before Sunset is the name of that first one.
Before Sunset's the first one. Before Sunrise is the first one. I haven't seen the sequels.
Well, you got to watch all three in a row. That's the way to do it. But Before Sunset...
I have the box set right over there.
Got to do it, man. The third one is like a masterpiece. But the second one, the way it does is like she wrote about the events of the first movie, and he has a copy of that book, and he's like, holy shit. And one of their conversations is like the differences between how she wrote it, and that's like character-based. That is a really interesting way to do it. This is just there because it'd be a funny visual gag, and that's it.
Yeah, and there's a twist in Shanghai Nights that it was Owen Wilson who wrote the books.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah, and like Jackie Chan is really pissed off because he got written to be like a really dumb comedy sidekick.
Yeah.
But he was the one who did everything.
Yeah, no.
So I'm like, wow, you just recycled your own jokes for this movie. What the fuck?
Exactly. So yeah, no, I'm not super into, like, I see that a lot in like a lot of different stuff, and I don't know, I barely noticed it in this one. I think they should just not include it. It's just not relevant.
But I mean, a lot of the drama I don't like, because there's this whole thing about how like, oh, Rick wasn't interested in his son's life, and how Evie was smothering, and I'm like, that doesn't track with what we've seen.
Well, I mean, we
Again, it has been a while.
it's been a long time. We've barely seen them interact with their kids since.
It's been 14 years.
I'm more confused about the plot and how it relates to their son, because he's still adventuring, which makes sense, and Rick and
Yeah.
Evie have settled down. They're somewhere else. They're like a different part of the world. So at the exact
They're
same
in
time,
England.
yeah, they're in England. At the same time that the son finds the mummy's body and brings it back to China, Rick and Evelyn are prompted to bring the Eye of Shangri-La back to China by the
Yes.
informant because Evie's the one who awakened the original mummy. That actually makes sense for like story reasons. But why did he intentionally reunite the O'Connells? And if he didn't know they were long lost family, that is the fattest coincidence of all time. Because those three together are what stopped the mummy, because the O'Connells have stopped mummy twice in the past. Why would you do
Yes.
that?
Yes, that is actually very weird.
He either
They just
knowingly
happen to have it.
Yeah, he either knowingly knew that like they would come together and pulled those strings and doomed himself, or he didn't know and it's like, are you fucking kidding me on the timeline on that? Like, of course, you know?
Like, you couldn't have gotten, like, a courier to, like, mail it to you.
Yep. Yeah, I thought about that too. It's like you wouldn't recruit the O'Connells to do that. Obviously, there's a twist because you want Evie there to read the thing, but
Yeah.
that
Because
like I'm saying that makes the most
because
sense.
now she's an expert in Chinese history, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think it's also funny to me that they took a gag from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Which one was it?
Not Meet Frankenstein, Meet the Mummy, because Meet the Mummy ends with them creating a nightclub named after the mummy.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's interesting.
Like the worst Abbott and Costello movie, maybe. Bringing jokes back.
I think that character, what's his name? Jonathan? Yeah, Jonathan. I think he works in scenes that are like part of the story. Like he's a great character who's there.
He has one of the worst scenes in this movie.
He does. But having him have his own nightclub, I think you dedicated like a good like 10 to 15 minutes of just attempts at comedy with him, and they're just all around talking, and I think that was so like, hey, fans like him, let's bring him back and give him his own nightclub and give him this entire scene and whatever. I like the tribute to like Imhotep by, naming it, and like everyone's got like the tattoos and stuff. That's fun. That's all cool. But I think they lean so heavy in. It reminds me of the Disney sequels to Pirates of the Caribbean, where Captain Jack was like perfectly used in that first one, and now the sequels are just the Captain Jack Sparrow show. And
then it's like, oh, we mentioned Singapore once, we have to go there now.
Yeah, exactly. So like I don't know. Again, I think it's my favorite one of the three. It's got a lot of flaws. It's got a lot of problems. I wish
saying it's your favorite one of the three is not saying much because you only give it a marginally better score.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to my score.
We'll talk about scores.
We'll get there.
Where am I going? There's a sequence of scenes in the middle of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They wake up the mummy with, the blood of one who is pure of heart. Awful cliche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's and also another pilot friend of Rick's. You're doing that again.
He has so many that like every new mummy, he's like, I'll use this one.
And it wasn't even like they brought in like a new kind of aircraft this time. It was just another plane.
Just a plane. Yeah, it's not exciting in any way. He didn't need to be there.
But between like the plane, also the plane crash scene where you have the awful looking animatronic yak that vomits and goes, oh, the yak, ha 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 ha.
Yep.
And there was the joke earlier where Jonathan gets lit on fire and he actually says, spank my ass, which is like, oh my god.
That's pretty rough. Yeah, no, not all the comedy hits, but, it never really
and
has.
You got like ball jokes with Brendan Fraser bouncing on the horse.
Yeah.
But no, after they crash and they head out in the mountains, there's like 2 or 3 scenes in a row that are just awful. Where you have Alex arguing with the girl about how, you don't like a girl who can beat you up.
The son and the girl pretty much just copy Han and Leia in Empire Strikes Back. Like, some lines are even the same. Like, there's so much of like, oh, we could never be together. Because why? Because you're too stuck up. Oh, yeah, you're too this. Like, that's just, they're just doing that. Like, they're not even changing it.
and then after that, you get the weird scene where Evie is like, way too interested in her son's theoretical sex life.
Yeah, that was...
It's like, oh my god. It's
Mm-mm.
like, oh my god, he's just kind of brushing like, yeah, mom, I have experience with him, and she's like, oh, like what? It's like, ugh.
Ew, why would the mom want to know that?
And then you get the absolutely bizarre scene of Jonathan proposing marriage to the yak.
I will say the humor, the attempts at humor in this movie, hit or miss like they've always been, they are shorter. The scenes are quicker. And I think that is to the movie's benefit. Because if you
And you
linger,
don't, and it is weird in the other two movies how they have like three comic relief characters.
they do. Virtually everybody's a fucking comic relief character in those movies.
Yeah,
But yeah,
because I mean, the first one you have Jonathan, you have Benny, and you have the warden.
yep.
And then you get to the monastery. Best scene in the movie is when the Yetis show up.
It's so fun. I'm surprised you're saying that.
Stupid, but
Everyone
it's so
else hates
funny.
it. Why don't you
That's
hate
the
it?
scene I like. That's the scene. It's when the movie finally wakes up for me.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you have mummies coming in. You have Yetis coming in and like kicking people and like
Yes, it's
going, "Ah!"
yeah, football. Yeah, it's so fun. Like it's a ridiculous scene, but it's part of like this ridiculous series of movies, and I think it's tonally consistent. Like it fits. It's what the if this had been another like I'm trying to think of like a serious version. If you had done that exact scene and it's just a quick gunfight that lasts not quick for like 10 minutes and it's the
Yeah.
emperor wins and the avalanche wins, then it's way less interesting or fun of a scene, and it goes back to the Mummy Returns where it's just boring. Like this is an engaging way to do it. It's a Universal monster movie. You throw new monsters at us, I'm interested. You know what I'm saying? Like I so expected to go into this and you just be like, the fucking Yetis, man. Of course it's the worst part. I'm shocked that you actually like that part too.
It's the movie. The movie. Although I do have to wonder about that sequence. They have to stop Jet Li from putting the jewel on top of the thing.
Yep.
Why not just? And they're like, oh, our plan B is to blow it up. And I'm like, why don't you just saw the top off, throw it down that big chasm, boom, done.
There's a lot of why not just like Jet Li can control all 5 elements because those are the Chinese classic
Yeah,
elements.
and he never does it.
He can just like wave his hand and then like Rick O'Connell explodes because you're all just water. Like there's so much he could do.
Like, he makes ice spikes once.
He makes
He
ice
does,
spikes that are slow and purposely spike around where all of the main characters are.
And he gets his ass kicked by an avalanche right after that.
Yep, he does. He does. And like you can watch the spikes like as they arise. Brendan Fraser, because the CGI, he can't tell what's happening in real life. The timing is off, so Brendan Fraser doesn't react to the first few rows of spikes, and then as it goes near his feet, he's like, "Oh my God, there's spikes! Quick, run!" Like they picked the wrong take or the timing of that same take. So, but I thought it was really funny. What that does is it portrays the Emperor as like incompetent and slow.
He's portrayed as having like all these like elemental powers, and yet his main mode of attack is to rip his own face off
Yes!
and throw it at people.
Yes, it
Like,
is.
Why?
That's so fun. Like again, this is another situation where it's like the action is much more creative. That's very imaginative because you could
But, like, why would that be your go-to?
I don't know. It's just like in the heat of
Now
the moment.
imagine if it boomeranged and he caught it and put it back on. That would be cooler.
You're riding your chariot, right? You got your little human henchman near you, and he's shooting the guy. But then all of a sudden, freaking Rick O'Connell's son's shooting you in the back of the head. Your face is already kind of cracked. It's like a split second. You have no time to decide. Just boom, chuck him with your own face, and it works.
Yeah,
It's great.
It's so weird.
It is
Also,
weird.
there's that chase scene in Shanghai where Rick and Jonathan accidentally murder an entire streetcar full of people.
Yes, they don't get into that at all because again, this isn't like they're not
Yeah.
public figures. They're just a couple people trying to stop a mummy. You know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
let's shoot a giant firework at him, which the Scorpion King invented.
yes, he did.
No, King Theoden invented it, but
Yes, yeah. Oh, don't get into the lore of Scorpion King DVD sequels with me.
no, that was the theatrical one.
Oh, that's right. That's the one theatrical one they did. Yeah. No, I think it's a really fun movie. And you had your criticisms of the third act. I probably share a lot of those, but the third act is really fun. I love the soldiers running at each other and exploding into bones and dust when they get hit. That's really satisfying. And the fact that they're all just like doing that on a mass scale. If anything, I could have used more of that. That was fun. That was exciting for me.
Like, it's weird that they specifically resurrected the general who was the witch's lover,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't meet at all.
Do they not need him?
No, they don't. Or if they do, they like glance at each other once and then go back and fight. Like you could have had like an actually strong kind of character moment there, and nah.
That would have been cool though if like at the end of the second act you actually kill the Emperor and the final fight is that the witch is there and she's relevant. That'd be cool.
We'll have them reunite and be like, hey, like we get to see each other again. By the way, I had your daughter.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I guess we'll talk about my problems with the third act. You're right. The soldier CGI is dated, where the terracotta army is like copy paste, but also the terracotta armies, like in real life, they copy pasted the same mold, when they made them.
True.
But yeah, no, the CGI is noticeably dated. There's no, I forget what the effects are called, but like the smoke simulations when they're running, they're just running over like
particle
yeah,
effects.
yeah. There's no particle effects, so they're just running over this desert, with the Great Wall, and the sand is just the most stiff, still stand of all time. But it's pretty funny.
That's one shitty looking Great Wall too.
It is a shitty looking Great Wall, and more criticisms. Like I said earlier, Jet Li should have been doing more karate, man. I feel like you got him just because you wanted the star power.
Yeah, that's what you get him for.
Yeah.
He did more martial arts in the Expendables, and that was not a great role for him.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, no, I feel like you just got Jet Li so you could say Jet Li's the villain, marketable, but you didn't actually utilize.
Sell it in China.
Yeah. Like, you're right. The opportunity is not with Rick O'Connell because he doesn't know Kung Fu. The opportunity was with Michelle Yeoh. No. That should have been a more extensive fight and better shot.
I mean, I wouldn't have trouble believing that Rick O'Connell learned Kung Fu at some point.
Or maybe when Rick and his son do the dagger thing, maybe Michelle Yeoh is the one who's there doing karate to, like, keep him on the back foot. That would have been that would have actually made that relevant more.
It is actually really funny that Jet Li is playing the Dragon Emperor. Have you seen Hero?
No, yes, I did. I thought you meant the last Emperor.
He plays an assassin who's going to kill the first Emperor.
Yes, that is a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, that is. It's another one of those Quentin Tarantino presents movies.
He was just had nothing to do with it, but his name's on it. The martial arts is so fun and stylized because everyone's like floating in the air. It's so fun. Yeah, everyone talks about Crouching Tiger. I think Hero is the underrated one. But yeah,
I haven't seen Crouching Tiger.
Crouching Tiger is great. So I think they underutilized Jet Li by a long shot here. He spends most of his time behind CGI, which you and I fully agree is completely outdated and does not look great.
But give him more of the third act.
Give him more of the third act.
Also, I do think it's really funny that he shouts to his army, "Death to General Ming," the guy who's already dead.
Been dead for thousands of years, mind you. Super dead.
So you get the zombie versus claymation fight.
Yep. He could at least have said death to the alive person, the witch, if you really care about that. Yeah. But
death to Rick.
It's funny, they had to write in like, oh, if they breach the Great Wall, they become immortal. Because you can't just have him resurrect his army and then attempt to wage war on the world. Because like, we're winning that fight. We're gonna win that fight before lunch. Just like a couple missiles.
We have nukes at this point.
We got nukes. Not even nukes. Just send a couple missiles. You're done. That terracotta army is just gonna be crumbled.
Unless they pull themselves back together or something.
Yeah. See, that's the immortal aspect. So that.
Also.
I was just gonna say that's really good stakes.
One other thing I don't like about this. Mm-hmm. They tried to milk a drama out of Rick being mortally wounded in the monastery fight, and then like 2 minutes later he's fine.
Yeah, no, I don't. At no point did I think like, and again, I've seen the movie before, but like, at no point did I think, wow, our hero is gonna die before the third act, where the poster is him with the swords doing Jet Li fights. Like, don't even play that. Why even try and play that with us?
And they basically did that in Mummy Returns, where she actually died, and they brought her back.
Yeah. Yep.
And like, there's no tension here. Surely you know the spell by now. Just go, hey, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it would have been so simple. It's funny you mentioned Mummy Returns, because I think, and this, you may agree with me or may not, I think it would have been phenomenal if the original Mummy made a cameo. Like, in the third act, they need help stopping the giant dragon, so they awaken the mummy one more time, but he has a mutual understanding. I think that would be dope if they went that route.
I think they talked about doing
really an Arnold Vosloo cameo?
Yeah, but Vosloo was like, I don't want to do it unless Oded Fehr is going to be in the movie.
Unless who's going to be in the movie?
Artist Bay, Oded Fair, the actor's name.
Oh, we'll just write him in. Who gives a shit? Everyone else is there for no reason.
I mean, what would he be doing in China?
What's freaking Jonathan doing in any scene in the movie? Nothing.
He's part of the family, I guess.
So is Ardith Bay. But I don't know. I think that would have been so nice. And in the sense of this being the third and final one, that would have concluded the trilogy really well.
No, not on the note this movie ends on.
Yeah, no, definitely not. It's just, hey, let's just do a fourth one. As if
there is a reference to Imhotep at the end of the I guess like a second or third draft is the one I read.
Mm-hmm.
Where Rick kills the Dragon Emperor, and instead of like the dumb line where it's like, now you can rule in hell, he says, give Imhotep my regards.
Yep. Yeah, no, that'd be really funny, like if Imhotep showed up and then drained the life force of that before getting re-entombed. But this time him and Rick are on good terms. That's called an arc.
That would be fine.
That's called a character
arc. That would be
baby.
Interesting.
That would wrap it up.
Because they already had kind of a little bit of an understanding at the end of Return,
yes.
where they're kind of looking at each other.
Yes, they stopped being enemies for like a split second. I don't know. I think that would have been so cool. That would have bolstered my score for this movie several points. But that's okay. We got what we got. I've burned through all my notes.
Can we talk about the sequel hook at the end of this movie?
Yeah.
It's so bad.
It's the worst.
It's so bad because it's really lazy too.
It's lazy because it's not even like it's part of the ending. It is the ending. He literally says, "I'm going to Peru," and it says credits.
Like he says, "I'm going someplace where they don't have mummies. Peru, here I come." And then they throw text on screen saying that mummies were discovered in Peru.
Mm-hmm. That's tough. That's
why
ridiculous.
That's such a you could have done something more creative, like have like a newspaper flutter by in the wind with the headline on it.
It literally, the writer is going like, well, a sequel is just basically guaranteed with this winner of a script, and it's like, oh.
And I'm like, not even this one was guaranteed. It took you 7 years for some reason.
I know, like they call it a trilogy, but the third one is so disconnected.
It's because the real third movie is The Scorpion King.
Shut up. That's a far worse conclusion to the trilogy.
I would rather watch this than Mummy Returns on Scorpion King than Mummy Returns on some days. I don't know why.
It's funny, but not for like actually any kind of merit. It's a terrible movie. And it reminds me
you have the camel that can hold up the rock.
It reminds me of the DVD sequels, so in that sense, it's pretty funny, but it's also, by that same token, very frustrating.
It's still the best Scorpion King movie. That's not a high bar.
It's so sad that that's true. Yeah, so that's kind of why I feel so strongly about the Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, a film that I still have mentioned I do not think is a great film, but I think it's far and away better than the other two.
You know what this has the big misfortune on? It came out the same summer as Crystal Skull, which is a much better movie.
Yeah, that's weird to think about. That Crystal Skull is better. Damn, you're right.
And let's be honest, this was like the Mummy movies were like the Indiana Jones movies we were getting for the longest time.
Yeah, they were like the fill-in for those, I should say.
Yeah, and I'll say I kind of like the first Mummy more than Crystal Skull. I know you're going to disagree with me on that.
I disagree with that. Yep.
And I actually kind of like Shia LaBeouf more than I like Alex in this.
I might agree with you there. Alex in this, we haven't talked about him at all. He's the most bland, generic guy ever.
And they really want him to be like the new lead of this series, whereas with rightly so in Crystal Skull, they treated that like a joke.
Mm-hmm. They sure did. Although they did it as a joke in the context of the movie, but they would have gone forward if they wanted to retire Harrison Ford.
I mean, he killed Megatron. How can he not be?
Yeah, exactly. He's too good of a leading man in the mid-2000s for some stupid reason. But yeah.
Holes was good.
Holes is good. Yeah, it doesn't mean he can transform 3 times. But yeah, so...
He did.
Well, yeah. To wrap up my thoughts on Mummy 3, I think it's the best of the 3, and I... don't know how I feel. I gave it a 5 out of 10 when we did the commentary.
Oh my god.
I am either 5 or 6. I don't know if I'm positive on this.
Oh, it went up.
It might have gone up. I think I'll stick with a 5 for now. It's still down the middle.
I think I'm going to give it... I think I said I was between a 3 and a 4 on returns.
Mm-hmm.
This might also be a 3 because it's bolstered by the Yetis.
The Yetis are so fun. How I feel about the Yetis is kind of how I feel about the rest of the movie. Like, yes, you should definitively go in this kind of goofy direction because this is what you've done. As long as it maintains some level of interest, you know?
Do you think they were ever serious about that Rise of the Aztec movie, or do you think that's all internet bullshit?
Oh, yeah. Like, that's what they wanted to do next, right?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
But they set up Peru at the end of this movie, and Aztecs are not from Peru.
Yeah, but they're not smart. Like, the screenwriters don't care. What you were talking about with the first one, where it's like they went and did research and got the Egyptian language for the opening. They're doing none of that here. Not even a little bit.
That's what's weird is that the reason Rob Cohen wanted to do the movie, the new director who did the Fast and the Furious, he's such a weird director too, by the way, because he made some movies and then in like his 40s, he was like, I'm going to be the hip new guy who makes extreme movies. So he made like Fast and the Furious and Triple X and that airplane movie, Stealth.
Yeah.
And now he does this. And he supposedly wanted to do it because he was really fascinated by Chinese culture. And he's like, he wanted to make sure it was all really accurate. And there's so many inaccuracies.
He wanted to make sure the Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor is really accurate. Are you kidding me?
Yes. And they shot in China.
Wow, that's the accurate part. They were there.
Yeah. I'm surprised. Maybe they were like looser about this in 2008, but I'm surprised this passed muster with the Chinese Film Board.
Mm-hmm.
Because they portrayed the first emperor as being an asshole, which the Chinese don't like.
Yep.
They showed walking corpses, which the Chinese also don't like. Should we talk about the elephant in the room, which is the recasting?
I mean, I don't know if I consider it an elephant because for me, it didn't really feel that much different. Like, I know you said she feels like a different character, like character-wise.
Writing-wise, yeah.
But in terms of like recasting, the performance is very similar. I mean, the differences are.
I feel like.
But go on.
And I don't have anything against Maria Bello. She's a good actress. She's been good in other stuff. She has an Oscar nomination at this point.
Mm-hmm.
What's really weird is that she said the reason she wanted to do this is because apparently she's like an actual Muay Thai practitioner in real life, and she never got the chance to do like a martial arts movie. And I'm like, that's why she did this. And I'm like, she doesn't do any martial arts in this movie.
Yeah, that, and it's not a martial arts movie. It's a film that has some parts that are martial arts in it. And I like those parts, but like it needs way more of them.
If you want more of that, just watch the Shanghai Noon movies.
Yeah, or you
get Jackie Chan.
Any Jackie Chan or Jet Li movie, or the movie with Jackie Chan and Jet Li, which is
no, don't watch that.
But watch the scene where they meet and they're monks in that temple. That's beautiful. That 10 minutes.
Yeah, watch the scene where they meet and then Jet Li pees on Jackie Chan.
Listen. Shut up.
I saw that in theaters because that came out like the week of my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, was that a disappointment?
I think that is a very bad movie with a 10-minute masterpiece fight scene in the middle of it where they meet.
I don't even remember the fight scene.
Oh, the fight scene's awesome. Watch it on YouTube.
But where was I going with it? I think Maria Bello, she plays the character way more brashed and way more like kind of bitchy.
I don't disagree, but again, I still chalk that up to a lot of time has passed. Yeah, in the context of the story, a lot of time has passed, and I think the characters are pent up. They're waiting to do more mummy stuff. I guess it's not like the best, most three-dimensional thing in the world here, but like I don't know, I kind of buy that.
It feels like they just kind of. I feel like a lot of that was just kind of like thrown in there, like they weren't really thinking about it too much.
But they had 7 years to think about it, as opposed to Mummy Returns.
I know. And instead of this, Stephen Sommers did G.I. Joe.
G.I. motherfucking Joe.
Which is a worse movie.
Yes. Yes, it is. Those movies are both bad.
That's such a frustrating movie because there are things in that movie that on paper are so good, but in execution they're just terrible.
So yeah, that's the Mummy trilogy. Overall, I'm very underwhelmed by all three. I have no reason to watch 1 and 2 again. If 3 is on, I will probably watch it.
Oh yeah, Mummy trilogy. I will give it a trilogy this. They got us like those insane home video sets for all these movies.
They do. Every time they do like a
They
big thing like that, they re-release all the
they
old stuff.
basically kept the franchise relevant through the 2000s.
They did, because that franchise was not relevant, like, since the Hammer horror movies.
Yeah, and like it's the one remake they actually managed to make up until the Wolfman.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I gotta tell you this, they've been trying to make Creature from the Black Lagoon remake for 40 something years now.
Yeah.
I did want to mention there's a rumor out there that his original pitch for a Mummy sequel was to have the O'Connells fighting a different Universal monster in every movie.
That would be so fun. Why didn't that happen? And
It
then
may not even be true.
you could do that for like 4 or 5 movies, and then the last one can be the house. Dude, that's
The House of Rick.
the House of Rick O'Connell. Dude, that would be incredible. I'm getting hyped thinking about that. Don't disappoint me.
And there was some rumor I've heard, I've only ever heard one person talk about that Van Helsing 2 would have had like the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Bride of Frankenstein in it.
Well, Van Helsing 1 almost had Creature in it, so that would have been
Yeah.
really fun. Also, Bride of Frankenstein is a smart way to go with the end of Van Helsing, because Frankenstein's off living his normal life now. So, hell yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good ideas there that'll never happen.
So next episode.
Next episode. Okay. So our next episode, next month, is Pitch Your Own Universal Monster Crossover, where each of us are going to pick, we settled on 3?
3? Yeah.
3? Okay. 3 potential Universal Monster crossover movies. It can be back then, it can be modern day, it can be something entirely new that isn't from the movies we've seen. But the rule is you have to include either meats or house in the title, because that's how they've
We have
always
to have
done it.
at least 2.
At
We have to
least
have
2.
monsters.
That as well. We have to have at least 2 monsters from 2 different series. But yeah, other than that, all holds are off. Cast anyone you want, living or dead, new people, whatever, any versions of any characters. Really, the sky's the limit. Like, what's the most interesting or funny or actually genuinely serious things we could do? What we're probably going to do as well is at the end of that episode, just put your best ones in the comments. You can do that now if you are listening this far.
If you want to.
And we'll probably address them next time and see if they're any good.
If you actually listen to this
If you
show.
actually listen to the show, see if they're any good. We'll talk about them. But yeah, so that'll just about do
Do we
it.
have listeners?
We have a few. The problem is we're only on YouTube right now. We got to get back on the. We got to do all those podcasting services, which all cost a lot of money.
You're all leaning on me to talk to that guy.
What? No, I wouldn't do that. That doesn't sound like me at all. But yeah, all right, cool. So we'll see you guys next month.